haven't heard that song before, I don't think. But it was really, Muppet song. That could explain why I didn't hear it, didn't know it, or maybe I just don't have a good memory for some things. Anyway, well, I'm so happy to be here, and I'm so happy to see you all. People have been asking me, how are you feeling? 1,000%. Yay. I'm going to talk about spiritual practices. So, and the first thing I'm going to talk about this specific thing, but I just want to acknowledge our practitioners, because as soon as I knew that I had to stay home, that I was not going to recover on my own, Reverend Patty said, what do you want the practitioners to pray for? And so we got them praying right away for wholeness, for health, and for self-awareness, self-understanding. Like, okay, why did I need this time off? Anyway, thank you, practitioners. I couldn't have been here even Friday, but I'm so happy to be here today. And yay, good work. I want to share a funny story that my sister told me, at least it's funny to me. And some of you have met my mom before her passing and know that she was quite a genteel lady, quiet and sweet. I think you would call her that, right? Hans is nodding his head, yes. Well, the other side of her is that she loved baseball. She was a great baseball fan, and she was a baseball fan that chattered. She learned from my great uncle to chatter all the way through, chatter pro for your team and con for the opposition, and the umpire was fair game. Well, when she went to all of my nephews' sporting events when she was in Canada at the same time as their events. And so that meant baseball season, she went to every game, all of the tournaments, and she was a loud fan. And she was expelled from one of those baseball games. My sister was sitting beside her in absolute consternation with the kind of things she was saying because they felt rude. And anyway, the umpire threw her out of the game. And that's a real true story. But here's the second part of the story. So my sister was visiting her financial advisor last week. And her financial advisor said, I want to tell you something funny that happened at your mom's funeral. Really? Something funny happened? She said, well, I asked my husband if he'd like to come with me. I know he had never met your mom or you, but maybe he might know some. You know, Saskatchewan's not that big. He might know some of the people there. And then he said, sure, I'd love to come with you. What was the deceased's name? And she said, Leila Clark. She said, I know Leila Clark. No, honey, you can't have known Leila. She's old. She's 96. She couldn't possibly know. How would you know her? I threw her out of a ball game. He was upping. Can you believe that small world? And so from the other point of view, great deep compassion for what must have been a young man at that time, because he's probably in his 60s now. So 40 years ago, just starting his umping career probably. And he has to tell this old lady to leave because she's causing too much of a nuisance. Anyway, life's like that. There's, if you look at take one of your coins out of your purse and look at one side, there's one thing on it, on the other, there's another thing. There's another thing completely different. If you just describe the one side, you'll be describing it perfectly. But if you describe the other side, it won't sound like that at all, because life has always at least two perspectives. There's always another way to look at something. There's always another point of view. So here we are, and this message is, I did create a very short PowerPoint. This is personal relationship with God, and really we teach spiritual practices to address the everyday life. So we teach people, you, me, everyone, spiritual practices to use, whether we're at a ball game as a player or as a spectator, whether we're in our homes, in our workplaces, all the time we teach spiritual practices so that we can live a better life, so that we can be happier, healthier, richer, more creative. That's what the practices are for. So over the last 14 days, I watched more TV than I ever have because I was a little bored. But I want to tell you something, because one of our main spiritual practices is meditation. And many of you meditate. Many of you come early to service to meditate. But meditation, when you begin meditating, isn't the easiest practice to learn. So does anyone here watch the sitcom Life in Pieces? Anybody? Okay, good. So Life in Pieces, for those of you who don't, is a sitcom about three adult children and their families and the mom and dad, and it's pieces of their life, little bits of their life. And one of the daughters-in-law was learning to meditate. So we see her going off into her bedroom, sitting in a yoga position and setting her timer for 20 minutes. And then we see her looking at the clock, 32 seconds has gone by. And then she wiggles a little bit more, and then she gets on a video game. And she plays the video game, and then finally her timer says, your meditation is finished. She goes out. Her husband says, you look wonderful. Meditation agrees with you. Yeah, she says, I think it does. So now her meditation is simply going away from the rest of the group, playing a video game or something in a secluded place. Of course, everyone wants to learn her meditation because there are all sorts of excuses. And she finally, it's given away when her husband finds out, he's overjoyed. He doesn't care that she's not meditating. But I bring it up because if you really want to meditate, if you really want the benefits, which are health, both mental health and physical health, benefits of meditation, stick it out past 32 seconds. Stick it out. Eventually, your body will learn to be still. Eventually, your mind will stop its chatter, or you'll be able to notice the chatter just as the next thing that's happening, the next thing you're thinking about, and let it pass by. As Dean Slater says, like clouds in the sky. We don't see them very often, but when we do, just to let them pass by. And that's what we can do with our thoughts in meditation. So change your thinking, change your life is more than a motto, says the person who wrote this outline. Her name is Reverend Tinker Donnelly. She says it's a method. Change your thinking, change your life is a method, and it certainly is a method. And because one of our main practices is spiritual mind treatment or affirmative prayer. It's a practice that we teach, we learn, we depend upon, and it changes life. It changes my life, it changes your life. If you are open to the change, it will change you for the better. Ernest Holmes says, what good is the possibility until it is used? What good is knowledge unless we make practical application of it? So here's the knowledge he's talking about. There's only one mind, it's the mind of God. God's mind is perfect, whole, complete. It is all-knowing, and it is first cause of all creation. That's part of the knowledge. And we can learn to cooperate with this mind and thereby create a life that we want, a life that works for us, a life that blesses us and each other. But knowing about it isn't going to do much, although it might make you feel better. Knowing about it isn't going to cut it. You really have to practice it. You need to be able to do the practices. Now, I was saying to Kathy Story and I had a short talk during my recuperation, and I said, I really need the practitioners to treat for me because I can't get there. I can't get there in meditation. I was doing the things. Because my every day is meditation, reading, spiritual mind treatment, sometimes journaling, every single day. Well, I would do the reading, but I wouldn't remember what I'd read. Then I would try to do the meditation and I wouldn't get still. I wasn't quite as bad as Life in Pieces, but pretty much in pieces. And then the prayer was scattered and wasn't doing what it was created to do. Practical application means not only do we know how to use it, but we use it. And it's easy to do. It's easy to do. To remember, every answer that you need is already within you. You already know what the good is that you want that will bless you. So claim it as already being there and it's yours. Ernest goes on to say, and this is on page 51, and he says he would rather have the student of this science prove the principle, than be able to talk about it as eloquently as possible. He says we're prone to too much theory and too little practice. Prone to too much theory and too little practice. And you know what I know about you is that you love ideas. Ideas are great. And why wouldn't you love ideas about God, about goodness, about way to live life better? But apply them to your life. Apply them to your health. Apply them to your finances. Okay. He says what the world needs is spiritual conviction followed by spiritual experience. Spiritual conviction. That means, Reverend Judy is very fond of saying that it is not done unto us as we believe, because some people's beliefs are like wishy-washy. It's done unto us as we know it will be done. When we know and know that we know, no one and nothing can take that from us. So when you know that you're a spiritual being having a spiritual experience in this human form, no one can change your mind about that. No one can take that from you. And we've had that knowing way before we bumped into a center like this. Even if we've been here our whole lives, we've always had that knowing. I love this time of year because the decorations and particularly the lights always put me in awe. I remember sitting with the lights out as a kid, and we had sort of a Charlie Brown's Christmas tree, and we always thought it was absolutely gorgeous, but it was mostly tinsel and very little tree and lights. But I remember just turn everything off but the lights. And let's just sit in that wonderment, in that feeling of anything is possible. At this time of year, the whole world is caught up in this. And I must say that I feel like somewhat of a Scrooge because my house is the only house in the whole block that isn't decorated. Everybody else is like ablaze. And so, but my decorations are in the attic, in the in the garage. And there they will stay until next November. And then I will get them out and I will decorate next year because I really want them to know I'm really not a Scrooge. So let's talk about what are the practices. The first one is our personal practices. And we're going to talk about the KISS method in a different way than sometimes you see it. So KISS meaning keep it steady and strong. Yeah, you know the other version, but keep it steady and strong. So that means a daily practice where you're not praying once in a while, you're praying daily. And in fact, during the day, when wouldn't you be in prayer? And why wouldn't you be in prayer? It's easy just to stay in that place of oneness and stay in that place of everything's possible. Keep it steady and strong. So, spiritual mind treatment, affirmative prayer, is our most powerful tool. As Reverend Bruce said before he began, it's our most powerful tool. And it's for those of you who don't know it, the kids all learn it in a heartbeat. And yes, the more you learn it, the more you put into it, and the greater you get out of it. But in the very first moment of recognizing that this is simply a scientific prayer that works because you're consciously aligning with Source, you're consciously aligning with the first cause of all creation, and speaking from that oneness, you're claiming your good as if it were already so. You're given thanks because, as Bruce said in his prayer, because of course I'm already grateful because I know it's happened. And then you let it go so that the universe can work on it. So the universe can bring it to you. Keep it steady and strong. Well, what happens if you're under the weather because of whatever reasons you let yourself get under the weather, she says to herself? Then perhaps a shared practice is what is called for. And shared practice is when we are working with someone else. The best place to do this is in a class. And there are 2 classes starting in January. Check them out. It's really a great way to get to know what we teach here and understand it and to use it and to apply it. One's on Monday night, one's on Tuesday night, and I think they start the week of the 10th, but we'll probably have an announcement about that. So take a class. The experiential oneness through shared studies is one of the best ways to experience oneness. Same thing why a group meditation is somewhat more powerful, more visceral than individual meditations because you're sharing the experience. So, and then the third way is partnered practice. So going for the goal, that's when you pick up the phone and make an appointment to see a practitioner or a minister and say, I want to transform my life. I want you to help me do it. And they'll ask you what time they can see you and they'll set it up and then you're set because it will make a huge difference. So first you need to know that it's possible. And sometimes, for very many reasons, we can intellectually say, well, everything's possible, but that particular thing isn't possible. It may not be possible for me to manifest that $1 million overnight. It may not be probable, but everything is possible. And it reminds me of the story of George Danzig, who was a student of mathematics in the 30s, I believe. And he really wanted the assistant professorship job, which he knew had to do really well on this exam in order to be offered this job. So he was late for his test. And the professor, before the test started, had written 2 unsolvable problems on the chalkboard and said, if any of you finish early, play with these. Even Albert Einstein couldn't solve them. Well, Danzig didn't hear this. So he came in, did his paper, got it finished before time, and then he scribbled down the questions on the board, and he worked on them, couldn't finish because he was stumped, but he knew that if they could be solved, he could solve them. And so The professor said to the students, you can take your test papers home, don't discuss with anyone, have them on my desk on Friday morning by 9 o'clock. And so George Danzig worked on his pretty well nonstop, and he solved both of those unsolvable problems. He went and took them to his professor, put them on the desk of his professor. But remember, he didn't know they were unsolvable. Sunday morning, there was a knock at his door. George, George, wake up, wake up. Good news. And it was his professor at his door saying, you have done the undoable, the impossible. But see, his mind didn't know it was impossible. So do yourselves a favor. When you hear yourself saying, well, that would be impossible, ask yourself, well, what if it weren't impossible? What if it were possible? If it's good and anybody could think it, then you could do it. You could think it. You could solve it. And speaking of Albert Einstein, Dr. Ken Gordon set out a beautiful little video about Albert Einstein. And he said, the video is basically this, that Albert Einstein, when he was a kid in grade school, came home with a note from his teacher, and he couldn't read it. It was in script writing. And he said, Mom, please read this to me. I can't read it. And his mother took the note and read, your son is a genius. We do not have teachers who can teach him here. Please keep him at home and teach him yourself. So she did. And he developed into one of the greatest geniuses that we've ever known. Years later, he found the note. It didn't say that at all. It said, Mrs. Einstein, your son is retarded. He is hopeless at school. No one can teach him anything. Please keep him at home. What a gift that mother gave her son. She didn't see him as retarded or hopeless or someone who could not learn. Our expectations have so much to do with our experiences. So in this time of infinite possibilities, think about the good that you desire. Think about the good that you want to claim for yourself or for your family or friends. And if you hear that little voice within saying, it's not possible, ask yourself, well, what if it were possible? And what if I am the one to do it? You are practicing the presence of God whenever you're praying, whenever you're meditating, whenever you're doing spiritual practice. Do them nonstop because God is good all the time, 24/7, 365. And so it is. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Diane's going to set us up, and I'm going to do a prayer of healing.
All good, holy, holy. All good, holy, holy. All in my mind, in my heart, in my soul. Let me know all is good. All one, holy, holy. All one, holy, holy. All in God's mind, in God's heart and the soul. Let us know we are good. Holy, holy.
And so we begin, and I speak this word in the first person and invite anyone who wants any of the things that I speak about to accept them as theirs, as yours. And if anything doesn't fit for you, let it just slip past you and over you. It will not harm you. So what I know is that there's God and absolutely nothing else, that this one that is everywhere present is in this very room. It is the wholeness of life. It is the Alpha and the Omega. It is the consciousness of the Christ, the awakened beingness. And it is the first cause of everything visible and invisible. It is. It is. It is all good, holy, holy. And so what I know is that I am one with this power. Each one of us is one with this source. I speak this word for healing, for revealing of the spiritual truth of body, mind, and spirit, that I am whole, complete, and perfect. I am that I am. I am the way, and that way is a light. I open myself to the light that I am, and that a light illumines everything I see. So I see it from the perspective of the whole, the perspective of allness, of oneness. I see good everywhere. And I know that that good is love. And so I open myself to love and say yes to love's call. I say, yes, love is. I am that love made manifest. And so I have loving relationships, loving friendships. I have awareness of the source everywhere present. Blessed and blessed. I know that the blessing that God is in this very moment, in, through, and as the word I speak. For each one here and each one listening, I speak this word for wholeness, for that vitality and energy and aliveness that is God's expression through body and through mind. I know a perfectly healthy mind and a perfectly healthy body, vital and strong, filled with energy and zeal. And I also know that I am one with the abundance that God is. I let go of any notion that I am Scrooge-like in any way and enter the Christmas season with gusto and gladness and tidings of great joy and peace on earth. There is more than enough, for I live in an abundant universe, and I give of myself with ease, with love, and with grace. And furthermore, I am the creative expression of this one, and that creative expression moves through me as I direct it. And it is the dance of life. It is the goodness within my being. It is the expression of aliveness and life. And that creativity flows through me as right speech, as right awareness, as right words. It flows through me as appreciation for the creativity I see all around me, for the beauty that is God in expression. And I give thanks for each and every person in this center, for each and every person who is part of this community, for I know that the fabric is woven of good, of God, of wholeness, and of love itself. I'm so very grateful that this is so. I'm grateful for the power and presence that God is in my life and everywhere. And I am so grateful for the word that I have spoken, for I know that it's already so. And I simply place this word in the law of love. God has it. It's complete. So I simply let go and let God. It's done. And please help me anchor it by saying with me, and so it is. Amen.